Hi, it's Menno. I wanted to make this video after what happened at the Sarah Everard vigil last Saturday at Clapham Common to ask the question, how can someone claim that they stand up for women's rights when they won't even recognize what a woman is? But first things first, so please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and I also want to give a very big massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. When in another video I asked for people to support me on Patreon, I didn't think anybody would. So to see people actually signing up and support me financially it's a very humbling thing, and I'm very, very grateful for it. There's also been some people, and they said, we just want to give you like a one-off amount. So some people have done it via PayPal. I'll put the link below. There was one man, he transferred some money and then he said, you know, buy yourself a nice big bottle of wine. And I was like, no, that's not gonna go towards wine. That's all gonna go towards, you know, the cause. So there's an artist called Stella. She is an illustrator, and she makes a lot of so-called gender critical cartoons and illustrations, and they're really good, they're really funny. Unfortunately, she was so-called cancelled by the Morning Star because one of her cartoons was deemed to be transphobic. It was a cartoon about nudes. So I had an idea for a cartoon about so-called feminists chucking women under the bus and women's rights under the bus. So I've asked her to draw that illustration. I'll pay her for it with some of the money that I've received via Patreon. So that way I feel that I'm supporting an artist, I'm supporting someone who's been affected by all this craziness. I've asked her to do it only earlier today. Hopefully if she does it say by tomorrow, then I'll be able to include it here in the video. So by you supporting me, I can then support other people, and that way we all sort of help each other out, and it's a knock-on effect. Okay, let's dive in. Just a word of warning, I do think this might get a bit heavy at times, but these are places we have to go sometimes. So, women's safety and fake feminism. What is this, I hear you say? Is a man gonna tell us what real feminism is? Well, yeah, kind of. But at least I know that I can never be a feminist because, you know, I have a dick. There are men who think they can be feminists and boast about it, like this dude, Jason, right here. By stating he is a feminist, he's taking the female out of feminism. But hey, he's got his pronouns in the bio, what else do you expect? I'm also aware that if I were to subject myself to surgical procedures and taking hormones to change my outward maleness, that still wouldn't make me a feminist. Unlike this person here, who seems to mistake feminism for feminization. My understanding of feminism is that this is a movement for women, by women. The only one in the entire world. So I would never claim part of that for myself as a man. I'm very happy to be an outsider, but to support you in fighting for your sex-based rights from the outside. So last Saturday, I went to the bandstand in Clapham Common to leave some flowers there myself that I got for Sarah to pay my respects. And I thought, what good is a bunch of flowers gonna do after what happened to her? And my heart really goes out to her family and to her friends, because this is the kind of thing that I think, especially as a parent, you will never recover from. My condolences to her family and her friends. Reading the different messages on the signs and the cards at the bandstand was very moving. Reading about how women just want to be safe in this world. Men obviously are also at the hands of male violence, but we are not vulnerable in a way that women are vulnerable. And I don't think we'll ever fully know what it's like. The fear that women feel moving through the world as women. Women get raped, men get raped. I was raped. That's a whole other story, but at least for me, there was no risk of getting pregnant. Unlike someone I'm very close to, who years ago was raped, fell pregnant as a result, and was then pressured by her parents, because she was still young, to have an abortion. They picked her up from her work, where she was an apprentice at the time, on a Friday afternoon, took her to the hospital. She was back at work on the Monday morning, and no one ever spoke about it, like it never happened. This is something men will never have to go through. Quite a few women have recently told me that they have developed a sense of having to look out for themselves all the time. It's like a constant sort of scanning where they are. Is there someone here that could be a threat to me? I can relate to that to an extent, I think, because I was very much a skinny little effeminate boy. My dad always said, look, if they're going to pick a fight, they're going to come for you. So I was always like, if I was in a social situation or on the street and somebody calling me names, whatever, you know, that makes you kind of more hyper aware. And you start looking and you start scanning. Is this person going to come for me? Is this person going to be a threat? Where can I go in case something happens? So I know that feeling a little bit. And the other night I was walking not far from where I live. It was dark, it was late. And in front of me there was a girl. And I was walking a bit faster than her, so I started catching up with her. And I could just sense from her, I don't know how, but I could just sense how uncomfortable she was, even though she hadn't seen me at all. But she knew there was somebody behind her. At one point I just went, don't worry, I'm one of the guys, I'll look after ya, or something along those lines. And this was her response. She went, which to me again signaled that fear and that feeling of being very uncomfortable and worried for your own safety is a very real thing for women and girls. So I spoke to some friends about it, guys, and they said they noticed that as well, and they would cross the street or actually slow down to not make women and girls feel uncomfortable. And I think that's a great way that we can support women. Obviously, the best thing is for men to just leave women right alone. So, back to Sarah Everard. There's a man in prison now. He's going to stand trial in the autumn this year. His name is Wayne Couzens. He worked for the police. He was part of an armed unit that guarded the parliamentary estate and embassy. So obviously, one of the reasons he was hired is because he's of his strength. This is what he looks like. So you can see, he's a big guy. She was a 5'4" woman walking home. This is what she was up against. And he chose her. There is so much talk these days over what is a woman, which to me is so deeply offensive. Because when Wayne saw Sarah, he knew what a woman was. And excuse me for being blunt, but if he'd seen Eddie Izzard walking down Clapham Common late at night, I'm sure Eddie wouldn't have ended up in a builder's body bag, if you see what I mean. In the same week that we learnt about what happened to Sarah Everard, Jess Phillips, a Labour MP, read out the names of 122 women who had lost their lives at the hands of men. Men who've either been convicted or been charged. So obviously we're dealing with a big issue here. And I feel we need to look at that in a wider perspective. Not just women being safe walking home, but women's safety in all spaces. At home, on the street, but also in hospitals, in rape shelters, in prisons, and particularly in the law. It's incredible to me that in the week, which by the way was the first week of Women's History Month, and the week that was started by International Women's Day, the Scottish Parliament passed a hate crime bill that protects different groups of people from hateful abuse, but not women. Women are explicitly left out on the basis of their sex. The bill was tabled by Hamza Yousaf, and when it was debated, a number of women made passionate pleas for women to be included on the basis of their sex, like Elaine Smith and Johanne Lamont, but it was all denied and the bill passed. And it's not like the people who tabled the bill and who voted for the bill were not aware of the abuse and the hate that women face in day-to-day life. Obviously, they will have heard of Sarah Everard, and I'm sure they're also familiar with a certain J.K. Rowling. Hamza said that women were basically kind of protected if they received abuse on the basis of, for example, being black or disabled or Muslim. But there is one thing that Muslim, disabled, and black women all have in common, and that's the fact that they're women. So why can't they recognize in that bill that women exist and they need protection? So it's like, as a woman, you're only protected indirectly. It's like being a woman is just like a secondary thing. Then Hamza said that he would set up a misogyny working group because, you know, misogyny is complex. What he's basically saying is women can wait. Johanne Lamont made an excellent point about this.
If it is reasonable, If it is reasonable to pause on women, why are we not pausing on these other complex areas? It cannot be that you will argue both we can wait a year for women who we know today are experiencing violence or dealing abuse precisely because of their sex, but that we can't wait, and that those who will not vote for the bill will be guilty of encouraging racism and disadvantage. Those two things are not possible to argue at the same time.
Not including women also creates a really weird loophole that could backfire on trans people. So if you have someone who identifies as a trans woman, gets abuse, but it's because the person abusing them thinks they are a woman, then that abuse would not be covered under this bill. This was pointed out to Hamza, who then sort of tried to turn it around and say, well, actually it works the other way as well, because, you know, if a woman is mistaken for a trans woman or a cross-dresser and then gets abused on the basis of that, then yeah, then she will be covered by the bill. So apparently women will be protected by the bill if they get mistaken for not being one. So now we've gone from trans women are women to women are trans women, which is mad. What is wrong with these people? What is wrong with Hamza? What is wrong with all the people that voted for it? Don't they have wives? Don't they have mothers? Don't they have sisters and aunts and grandmothers and female friends? Like, why don't these people deserve protection in their eyes? Why could they not include women in this hate bill? Now some are saying, oh, well, you know, we're just looking at the aggravators. Since when is being a woman not an aggravator for them to get abuse? A man dressing as a woman has more protections in Scotland now than a woman. Let that sink in. This is ridiculous. Imagine if this bill had left out transgender people. And when questioned, Hamza would have said, oh yeah, well, you know, it's complicated, so we'll set up a separate working group for you guys. Girls, sorry! At the same time that this is happening here, over in the States, the Equality Act is going through the Senate. It's already passed the House of Congress. Now it's over to the Senate, where, you know, if it passes and then Joe Biden signs this into law, with one stroke of his pen, he could resign all women's rights. Well, he just wiped them out. Just like that. All those years of women fighting for their rights, gone. How? Because they would put gender identity into legislation. Abigail Shrier made an excellent point about that when she testified against the Equality Act in the Senate.
If S-393 merely proposed to extend employment and public housing rights to gay and transgender Americans, I would be supporting this bill instead of testifying against it. I am here today because the bill does much more, and no one who wrote it appears to have thoughtfully considered what it would mean for women and girls. By enshrining gender identity as a protected category, this bill would make it impossible ever to legally distinguish between a woman and a biological male who claims a female identity for whatever amount of time and for whatever reason or purpose.
Now, obviously, Joe and Hamza, they're men, but then there are women. Like in the States, obviously there's Kamala Harris, who's got her pronouns dutifully in her bio. And here in the UK, we also have women and organizations for women who are doing everything to throw women's rights under the bus. One woman who spoke out and wrote an article for Metro newspaper called "I Choose to Challenge Violence Against Women and Girls" is Dawn Butler, a Labour MP. This is what she writes. It is time for those in power to accept that we are in a crisis of violence against women and girls in this country. Women and girls. She goes on to say, the extent of domestic abuse is shocking. A woman is killed every 3 days on average by a man. When she uses language like that, it sounds like she's very clear about what a man is and what a woman is. But is she? This is what she says about not recognizing a trans woman as a woman.
If you're saying that a trans woman isn't a woman, then there are issues around that.
And here she says that babies are born without sex.
When a child is born, they are identified and observed in a particular sex,
aren't they? The child is born without sex, and the child is formed without sex. The child is born without sex.
Why does she say these crazy things? Well, maybe it's because she appointed an LGBT plus advisory panel. It wasn't a panel to advise the Labour Party, it was a panel to advise her. And it included people like Monroe Bergdorf. Bergdorf was born a lovely baby boy and has made a career out of wanting to be validated as a woman, while at the same time trying to deconstruct what a woman is. Like in this Grazia piece Bergdorf wrote, "What makes a woman has no definitive answer, nor does it need one." This is where we invoke the Magdalene.
A woman is an adult human female.
It's worth noting that the very reason Dawn created her LGBT plus advisory panel is because she didn't agree that all women shortlists, whose purposes it was to get more women elected, should not include men who use woman as an identity. So I'm just wondering how much Kool-Aid was going round at these meetings Dawn had with her LGBT plus advisory board, but more importantly, how much can we trust Dawn to truly stand up for women if she won't even acknowledge what a woman is? Right, back to the vigil. After the vigil for Sarah Everard on Clapham Common, I went there in the afternoon, before it was dark and before everything kicked off. And on my way home, I saw a group of young women plastering the names of women on a wall. These were the names that Jess Phillips had read out in Parliament earlier in the week. I spoke with them and I asked them what it was about, and they told me they were part of a feminist organization. So I shot some footage and I included it in my video about Sarah Everard. And I was impressed. I was like, this is great. This is great to see, women organizing and beating their drum about women's rights and highlighting the violence against women. I was like, fantastic. And I was really happy to include them in my video. But then, and I should have done this before, but that's how you learn, I should have checked their Instagram first, because it clearly says in their bio, no TERFs. So here we have a group of women claiming to stand up for women, but they would rather support a man claiming womanhood than a woman defending womanhood. And they are what I call the fake feminists. And we see the same with this organization called Sisters Uncut, the organization that mobilized people to come to the Clapham Common bandstand when the official Sarah Everard vigil had been cancelled. So the original vigil had been organized by Reclaim These Streets, different organization. And then in the evening, Sisters Uncut were part of the, one of the groups that had organized all these people coming there. And they also put signs up on the common, signs on trees, I think, that said TERFs, what a TERF is and that they're not welcome. Again, it's like, how can you claim to fight for women and girls if you're happy to accept a man being one of them? Clown world. I went to their website and I had a look. It says, Sisters Uncut taking direct action for domestic violence services. Okay, that sounds great, right? Yay, women fighting for women's rights. And safer spaces policy. Okay, wow, they're fighting for safer space. Wow, they're really onto a good thing here. We are Sisters Uncut. As women and gender variant people, whoa. Okay, so it's not just women. A bit further down, it says they are intersectional feminists. Okay, I guess for most of the women watching this, they already know that that's a massive red flag. As soon as somebody calls themselves an intersectional feminist, that means that they are feminists who center men. And yeah, here it says they fight for trans liberation, against transmisogyny and transphobia. So again, you know that these are not feminists. These are kind of like Jason, right? A man who calls himself a feminist. It's the people who take female out of feminism. Sisters Uncut have also been putting information out about women they say have been killed by the state. Either killed by police officers, in prisons, or in state custody. Notice the asterisk behind the word women. That means it's not just women, it's men as well. Here are a couple of the women that they include. So here we have Jade, aka Martin. Ito, I don't know how you pronounce that name. Ito. Jailed for life for raping a 15-year-old girl at knife point after dragging her to some wasteland. A crime he committed less than 2 hours after sexually assaulting a 19-year-old woman on her doorstep after following her home from the town centre. The judge, Edward Slinger, said this when he sentenced Martin. The circumstances of these offences are of the type which every woman dreads early hours of the morning. A woman walking by herself is suddenly attacked. A woman like Sarah Everard. A woman whose vigil was hijacked by Sisters Uncut. What does the Uncut mean anyway? Is that a way to get a reference to a dick in their name? Yet they will gladly take the kind of men that commit these hideous crimes against women and girls and claim they are as much a woman as their victims. If Wayne Couzens starts identifying as a woman behind bars, will they also rush to his defense? Would they campaign for Waynetta to be moved to the women's prison? And what of Martin's rape victim? Will they demand of her that she refer to her rapist as she, her, and call her a TERF if she doesn't? Just to point out that Martin had been in prison since 2005, announced his transgender identity October 2014. So 9 years later, was accepted onto the transgender prisoner pathway early 2015. May have been on hormone treatment for a bit, but never had any surgery, so we're dealing with an intact male here, as in a guy with a dick. Also, he didn't consistently present as female, as he still walked around topless and grew facial hair. Some of the staff also noted concerns that the motivation for transitioning may not have been genuine and perhaps an attempt to avoid completing further offending behavior work. As for having been murdered by the state, as Sisters Uncut claim, Martin hanged himself from the window with a bedsheet. I'm not going to go into all the others, otherwise this video will go on forever, but rest assured that they are mainly very violent men in prison for things like rape and attempted murder, involving minors as young as 4. The others named here all committed suicide. They weren't murdered, like Sisters Uncut claims. Murder is what happened to Sarah Everard. So, Sisters Uncut, are they in it for the sisters or for the misters? What do you think? And then there's Patsy Stevenson, the woman whose picture went viral. When I first saw those pictures, I thought, this is absolutely shocking. Why are they manhandling a woman like that? And there's just something about the picture that, you know, it's to see a woman be treated like that, especially at an event that is about keeping women safe from violent men. You know, it's just crazy. She was on Good Morning Britain being interviewed. She came across very well, I thought, and she was all about protecting women and girls.
I think women have sort of stood by and let things happen for long enough, and we all were sort of together. All we wanted was for women to be able to mourn and share, you know, each other's company in a safe space. As someone who does stand up for women's rights and things like that, I think we need to get the message away from we're against the police and the police did wrong, and focus on the main message, which is that we now need to open a dialogue for change and to support women's safety. I'm an ambassador for like women in STEM and women in physics and things like that. You know, I don't want to be in the centre of this and, you know, and go viral, but at the same time, I just think of all the women that don't have a voice. So, you know, I need to do this, and I need to make sure the message is spread that women's safety is a priority right now, and we need to try and change things.
So again, I think fantastic. But then I saw a clip of her right after the police let her go on Saturday night, and she says this.
Well, first of all, I came here to support any woman, whether it be cis woman or trans woman, every single woman. Whether it be cis woman or trans woman.
On the 21st of March, she tweeted the following. When I say I stand up for all women, I mean all women. Women of color, trans women, women with disabilities, the LGBTQ+ women. Every single one. I guess it was meant to sound all inspirational and progressive, but she since deleted the tweet. Maybe she read it again and realized that she was being kind of racist by putting women of color in the same category as men identifying as women. Also, when she says every single one, I'm sure that doesn't include women who say that there's such a thing as the material biological reality of being female, and that it matters in life and in law. So again, it's like you have these women and these organizations, they say they are here to protect women and girls, but they won't recognize what an actual woman is. They would rather support a man claiming womanhood than supporting a woman defending womanhood. So to me, it's like you cannot trust these people. because they will prioritize men. So who can we trust to truly stand up for the rights of women and girls? So the ones I'm aware of are the Women's Human Rights Campaign, Fair Play for Women Scotland, The Countess Didn't Fight for This, and Standing for Women. If there are any other women's organizations that really, truly stand up for the rights of women and girls, let me know in the comments below. Okay, I'm gonna leave it here because I've been ranting long enough. Next thing I'm working on is a video on why I stand with women in their fight for women's rights, their sex-based rights. And I want to do something fun and lighthearted because we also need to just be able to laugh a little bit. So I'm working on the Sis song. And I hope you'll all be at least chuckling away at that once I put it live. Oh, but before I go, sorry. I promised you that I'd show you Stella's illustration, the one I commissioned her to draw about fake feminists throwing women under the bus. Here it is. I think she did a great job, as always. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and also if you're not one of my Patreon supporters yet, please check out my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/badgaysupergay, and you can sign up to one of my 5 packages there. Alright, take care, see you soon, bye.